the main presentations of the day. I'm just going to do a little bit of context setting for this REACH project. So what I'd like to cover is the REACH burden of proof, some clarification on Article 15.1 and what it means for substances used in plant protection products, the REACH requirements, the justification for a REACH crop protection industry approach, an outline of the REACH-in project, and then I'm going to hand over to our REACH-in project partners for their detailed presentations. Okay, so in contrast to most chemical legislation, REACH does place the burden of proof of safety on the industry rather than on the authorities. And as we heard, it's anticipated that with the exception of the substances of very high concern, ECHA will only review about 5% of the REACH dossiers, which is a very different situation to active ingredients, as we know. And the registrations will be given by ECHA for substances based on this assessment provided by the registrant, who must demonstrate safety for all their specific uses. And the obligation is on the registrant, therefore, to communicate the safe use and the risk mitigation measures to its downstream users. And the crop protection industry, as manufacturers, importers and downstream users, need to ensure compliance with the requirements of REACH. And it's all of this really that leads us to think that there is flexibility here in terms of the approach that we can take. And that was the starting point for this project, was to look at how we can approach co-formulants, active substances used in crop protection products for REACH purposes. So coming back to that infamous clause, Article 15.1, and substances used in plant protection products. And it says that active substances and co-formulants manufactured or imported for use in plant protection products only, and included either in Annex 1 to Directive 91414 or in one of the 91414 review lists as listed in REACH, and for any substance for which a Commission decision on the completeness of the dossier has been taken pursuant to Article 6 of 91414, shall be regarded as being registered. And I'm sure we're all familiar with that article. But there has been some questions and need for clarification and interpretation from ECHA to find out exactly what is covered by that article. And we're pleased to say that ECHA have confirmed to us twice, even though some of the national help desks were giving different interpretations, but this is a confirmed and reconfirmed position from ECHA and the Commission, that the interpretation of Article 15.1 should be a literal interpretation. And therefore active ingredients which are listed in Directive 91414 Annex 1 or in the review lists are considered to be registered, even if they have subsequently been non-included under Directive 91414. So they just have to be listed in one of the Directive 91414 lists. Obviously, only the uses of those active substances in plant protection products are considered to be registered, and therefore active ingredients which are manufactured in Europe for export only are considered to be registered if the conditions of Article 15.1 apply. However, co-formulants in crop protection products are not listed in 91414 and nor in the 91414 review lists. And it does seem that some chemical manufacturers and suppliers are still referring to this article and assuming that co-formulants are registered, which of course they're not. So co-formulants used in crop protection products must be registered under REACH, and the EU manufacturer or importer of co-formulants must include an assessment demonstrating the safety of the co-formulant as used in crop protection products in its registration dossier, with the requirements and deadline being driven by the annual tonnage. I think Alan's already covered this in his slides, but what I really wanted to point out here was the area in which this project is working. The hazard properties of the substances will be identified by the manufacturer within the CF, and there'll also be required to provide exposure information in a technical dossier for all substances greater than 1 tonne per annum, and then, as we know, in the chemical safety report for substances greater than 10 tonnes per annum. And just to confirm that it's the area of the exposure scenario, the assessment of those uses, and the risk characterisation that this project is really looking at. So we started to think a couple of years ago about having an industry project on the basis that the hazard data, the classification, the DNELs and the PNECs will be determined by the manufacturer or the importer. And the exposure scenario, exposure assessment and risk characterisation will be included in the chemical safety report. So the REACH-in project was really designed to support suppliers by providing standardised use descriptors and tools which can be used to demonstrate the safety of co-formulants in crop protection products under REACH. And we thought that an industry collaboration would ensure a standardised and consistent approach across the industry and simplify, therefore, the compliance process for regulators and for registrants. Within the scope of the project are co-formulants, synergists, safeness and tank mix adjuvants. So coming back to Dieter's clarification as to what a co-formulant is earlier, anything in a plant protection product apart from the active substance. It looks at the crop protection product specific exposure scenario, so that's the use by our downstream users, by the farmers, the uses that are covered for active ingredients by 91414. It's not covering manufacturing, formulation, packaging or labelling. And it's support for the registration title under REACH only. The success criteria that we established were that the tools should be, or the tools and the methodology should be simple to use. The level of assessment should be consistent with the standards of other industries, and that we didn't end up conducting a 91414 style evaluation for co-formulants. However, it should be credible with authorities because co-formulants are included in the revision of 91414, 1107/2009, and we would prefer that they remain evaluated under REACH and the Commission and the Member States refer to REACH for the assessment of those co-formulants and only look under 91414 at ones that they have particular concern about. And we wanted an approach that would provide a high pass versus failure rate for the crop protection uses. We appointed consultants about a year ago, just over a year ago, and we were looking for expertise in crop protection evaluation and also REACH requirements, awareness of the approach that other industries were using, creativity, flexibility in terms of working with us and understanding exactly what it was that we were trying to achieve, and adequate resources to deliver the project to time and specification. And we were pleased to appoint Dr. Knell Consult to look at the operator, bystander and worker assessment, and Cambridge Environmental Assessment, CEA, to look at the environment and ecotox assessment and also the consumer dietary exposure. And so for the last year, they've been working intensively with us, particularly with a core team from the ECPA ChemEg group and a number of company experts from the crop protection companies in developing the approach that you're going to see today. So the overall objective was to define a science-based industry approach to the assessment of co-formulants under REACH. And what we asked consultants to focus on was assessing the extent to which the existing 91414 Annex 3 member state evaluations already cover the co-formulants. And that was because from an early meeting with the Commission and with ECHA, with representatives from the Commission and ECHA, they said to us, well, all the co-formulants in crop protection products are already covered by the 91414 evaluations, and all you've got to do, ECPA, crop protection industry, is write a scientific justification which proves that, and that would be acceptable for the purposes of REACH. So the first thing we wanted the consultants to do was to look at that and write that scientific assessment for us. In case there were any gaps in that, we also wanted them to provide an evaluation of the approach being taken by other industries to ensure that if we did need to develop something, we were being broadly consistent in terms of our level of detail and approach. And to consider the suitability of other available approaches and models, either under 91414, under REACH, under biocides, or even in other regions of the world, to see if that could help us. And if we needed to develop something, then for them to make proposals for the development of suitable approaches and methodology in consultation with the ChemEd core team and the crop protection industry experts. And if possible, to back calculate from whatever models were developed to provide worst case exposure scenarios, so trying to move in the direction of generic exposure scenarios, common theme under REACH. And for whatever was developed, to make that, the output from those models available in a template which could be included in the chemical safety report. And unless anybody's got any questions specifically on that background, then I'm going to hand over to Volker from Dr. Knöll, and then this afternoon after lunch to Paul Mason from CEA, who's going to talk you through the output of the different parts of this project.